So yeah, good day guys. Still the usual Dr. FMZ. So today we are going to be having two lectures in just a video. We are going to be covering the virus, the Monera, Protista, fungi, and Plantae kingdom. So Plantae kingdom is actually meant for another video, but we are still in the same thread, so we can just discuss everything together now. So taxonomy. So this is like the foundation for the whole classification of a thing. So and then we have to also kind of know what is she get. Questions are coming from this too. So taxonomy in a broad sense is the science of what classification. We are just classifying. That's what taxonomy deals with. But more strictly, the classification of what living and extinct organisms. We are not classifying. Let me put in the sense dead organism or non-living. Non-living. Yeah. So we are strictly classifying living and extinct organisms. Extinct organisms are those organisms that were once living but they are no more in existence. So that is the biological classification of life, basically. So the terms derived from the word taxis, which means arrangement, and nomos, which means law. So the law of arrangement, the principle that guides the arrangement, the classification, that's it. So taxonomy is there for the methodology and principle of systematic botany and zoology and sets up arrangement of the kinds of plants and animals in hierarchies of superior and subordinate groups. So we are just arranging in a form of hierarchy. Hierarchy in the sense of okay, this is the superior, this one comes below it and all. So among biologists rather, the linear system of binomial classification created by Swedish naturalist Carolus Linnaeus in 1750s is internationally accepted. The years are not you are not to kind of take the years so serious, they won't ask. But just know that the system that they adopted was the linear system, and it was by who Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, so the Carolinian system of classification. So Carolinius, also known as Calvin Lin or Carolus Linnaeus. So you see a lot of questions out there. You write Carolinius or Carolus Linnaeus or Carolus Lin. Not the way they write it. I think that's always what they are testing. So it was Calvin Lin or Carolus Linnaeus. Proposed taxonomy system of classification known as the linear system. His works include introducing a binomial naming system that leads to organized and standardized animal and plant species taxonomy. What's the binomial naming system? It's a naming system that uses what the species and the generic name. Or let me say just say the generic and the species name in that sense. For example, the human beings which are Homo sapiens. Our generic name, which is genus name, generic name is Homo. Our species name is what sapiens. So using those two names together, we have the what binomial name for what human being. Okay, the system contains proper classification factors, including class, order, genus, species. Its books allow identifying animals and plants. For instance, flower can be identified from a smaller part. Of course, you can say okay from calyx, petals, and all these things. You can identify a plant. Moreover, in the present century, this work was being used in 18th century. However, modern taxonomists consider the system as the starter of taxonomy, and that gave Carolus Linnaeus the 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 name of being the father of us taxonomy. Carolus Linnaeus, please note that. Okay, so classification system. So we said Carolinian system is the one they kind of adopted and they are using. So the biologists needed, let's look at the classification systems we have. The biologists needed the system to provide all this information to get full information about similarities and differences among different organisms. We are trying to classify them to know the differences, the similar, because the ones that are kind of similar will be in the same group. The ones that are way, way, way far different from each other, they will be in different groups. So, uh, the different classification systems came out shey you get. So this classification system is kind of okay. They started with the two this thing. We see that. So in early classification system, organisms were divided into two kingdoms that are what plant and animal kingdom. You have the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. That was the initial classification system that we used. But with time, issue came up with it. And then okay, let's move on. We are going to see all the issues that I'm talking about, the issue of Iglena not being in one, being in the two, and other sorts. So, however, in recent years, the taxonomists agreed on five kingdom classification, which was by Robert Whittaker. We are going to see that the only difference in the five kingdom classification and six, there was also a six kingdom classification, is that the kingdom Protista was subdivided into two kingdoms, Protozoa and Protophyta. Protophyta and Protozoa rather, accordingly. So they give us the five kingdom classification, which everybody knows: the Monera, the Protista, the Fungi, the Plantae, the Animalia. That's the five kingdom classification. But some people say there are six kingdom classification in the sense that they divided Protista into Protophyta and Protozoa. Do you get? So it's still the same thing. So the two kingdom classification system, this is when they use Animalia and what and Plantae. And they say, okay, anything that is plant will be what? Capable of photosynthesis, and anything that is photosynthesis in the sense of what? Autotrophs. And anything that is Animalia will be capable of moving around, and they are heterotrophs. So that means they place bacteria, fungi, and algae in the kingdom Plantae, you get. And then bacteria, they are not using the aspect of the cell type, which we have the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cells, you get. So because bacteria are having prokaryotic cells in the sense that they are cell, they don't have organelle that has membrane in them. You get, like membrane bounded organelles, they lack it, including the nucleus. They just have the content of the nucleus in the cytoplasm in an area called the nucleoid. I think we talked about that in the cell video. Okay, so based on more advanced research, the taxonomist contested this classification and it was not workable because uh the like bacteria, fungi, algae, everything in just the kingdom Plantae, and then a lot of issues that came up, like Iglena having the plant and animal feature. Where are we going to put it? So some people will be calling Iglena plants, some will be calling it animal. So they had to bring up another classification system. So you have the three kingdom classification system. So the taxonomist named Ernst Haeckel solved the previous problem in 1866. The year does not really matter. He made a third kingdom Protista to place organisms like Iglena, because Iglena is the one giving us issues now. We cannot put this in plants, we cannot put it in animals, so we have to put it somewhere. So they are Protista. So he also completed bacteria in the third kingdom. They also added bacteria to the Euglena kingdom. However, the fungi have been made in the Plantae kingdom, like they still have it there. But the issue with fungi is that they don't do photosynthesis. But in kingdom Plantae, our criteria rather is that they must be able to what? Photosynthesize. Besides, the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes are not considered in this system of classification. Okay, good. So fungi resembles plants in many ways but cannot prepare their fruit. They cannot photosynthesize. So instead, they get food by absorption. They do not contain cellulose and have chitin cell walls, making them characteristically what? Heterotrophs. Okay, then coming to the last one here, the five kingdom classification system. So the term prokaryotic was used to describe bacteria and eukaryote, and eukaryotic was used to describe plant and animal. So we are now having kind of, okay, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic for bacteria, then eukaryotic for what? Plant and animal. So Robert Whittaker introduced the five kingdom in 1967. Please note down in Robert Whittaker, they ask it a lot. So Robert Whittaker gave us the five kingdoms classification system, and it is based on the system give levels to cellular organization, including prokaryotic, unicellular, eukaryotic, and monocellular eukaryotic. That's it. That was how it advances from prokaryotic to unicellular eukaryotic to multicellular eukaryotic. It's just like prokaryotic to eukaryotic. Then under eukaryotic, we now have unicellular and multicellular. Do you get? Then based on modes of nutrition, that is photosynthesis, absorption, and ingestion. So we work for those that can photosynthesize to those that cannot. We differentiated all those things, and that was what Robert Whittaker used. So on this basis, organisms were classified into five kingdoms, such as the Monera for the prokaryotic, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Maya for the eukaryotic. So for Protista now, okay, we are going to see everything one after the other. So taxonomy hierarchy. The process of placing or grouping organisms in different taxonomic groups is known as taxonomy hierarchy. We are putting them in different groups. One is superior than the other in this case. Do you get? So it's like an ordinal system of classification. So these levels form a structure similar to the ladder or pyramid. The organisms were grouped in ascending and descending classification order and vice versa. So the highest level is considered to be the domain, and the least one are species. So the domain basically is actually introduced by Carl Woese in 1990. Okay, I think it is in the later slides. So Carl Woese, you're going to see that. So taxonomic rank. The levels, as mentioned earlier in biological classifications, are also called the taxonomic ranks or taxa. Yeah, or taxa. So each level, the domain, the kingdom, the all these guys are what taxonomic ranks or taxa. So each rank leads to other taxonomic ranks, either in an upward direction or downward. So it's just like okay, for kingdom now, what makes up the kingdom is what? The phylum or divisions. What makes up the phylum or division is what? Class. Do you get my point? So when we now say okay, from phylum now, how do we get class? So inside phylum we have different class. So they lead to one another like that. So taxonomy hierarchy overview. Uh, Below is a quick okay. We have the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, other, family, genus, species. Don't forget, um, phylum is for animal, then division is for the division is for what? It's for plants. So when they say give me the division, it's just like they're also asking for the phylum, but it's actually division for plants, phylum for animals. I forget to add that. So we have the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus. Let me even add the division now, so I won't forget. Where is that? Where are you? Okay. So phylum or division. Yeah, so phylum or division. So that's that for that. Then I think okay, domain is the highest level and constitute three domains of life. Although some people say it's also two, but I'm going to explain that. The kingdom, which was given by Robert Whitaker 5, we have that already. Then for these five kingdoms now, for each kingdoms we have phylums for it, shey you get. Then for each phylums we have group of related class. For each class we have group of related orders. For each order we have group of related families. For each family we have a group of related what genera, which is genus. Then for each genus now we have group of related species. For each species we have group of similar organisms. So again, in fact, they used to ask the question, what is a species? A species is that actually the tags that contains organisms that can interbreed, that can kind of come together to produce what offspring that are able to what reproduce, come together to reproduce that can interbreed. That's just the major thing. They are similar in the sense that you can say man and human they are in the same species, so they can come together to produce offspring. Do you get my point? So moving on. So domain, which is the first one now. Domain is a taxonomic level or rank, was added in the taxonomic hierarchy in 1990 by Carl Woese after 250 years of linear and taxonomy system of development. So Carl Woese was added recently in 1990. That's around 33 years ago. Okay. So the early taxonomies did not taxonomically add the domain yet. Moreover, the taxonomic level includes three life domains, such as the archaea bacteria, the eubacteria, and the eukaryota. So people just call it archaea, bacteria, and eukaryota. I mean, archaea is the first one, bacteria is the second one, then eukaryota is the third one. It also works, but you can call because archaea are still like bacteria, so you call them archaea bacteria. Then the eubacteria, they're just true bacteria. Then the eukaryota for the eukaryotic organism. So archaea bacteria includes single cell organisms that are evolutionarily close to bacteria and make habits in mild or extreme places. They live in extreme places like some a place very, very hot or very, very cold, or extreme places like desert. You get. So then eubacteria, they are the true bacteria guys, shey you get. Then eukaryota refers to what? Or any organism that has what eukaryotic cells in it. Eukaryotic cell in it. That's that for eukaryota. So those are the three major domains they have. And then some people now say, okay, it is two because if bacteria and archaebacteria they are just like bacteria, so you can group them together to what? To form the domain prokaryota. So prokaryota will be like a major domain for those two guys and eukaryota. So we have two domains, prokaryota and eukaryota. So prokaryota for prokaryotic organisms like what? Archaebacteria and eubacteria. Eukaryota for eukaryotic organisms, okay? So domain can be given two broad divisions, okay? Prokaryote and eukaryote. I think I've mentioned that. Then coming to the kingdom now. So initially there were two kingdoms, Animalia and Plantae by Carlos Linnaeus. However, after development of microscope and more research, more kingdoms were added. So there are currently five kingdoms by Robert Whitaker: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So for Kingdom Monera now. So Monera belongs to the prokaryote domain. Of course, you know that already because kingdom Monera is for bacteria. So kingdom Monera is under what now? The prokaryote domain. In fact, under kingdom Monera, we can also now have the archaea bacteria and the eubacteria. Do you get my point? I'm so sorry, guys. So I have to put my phone on airplane mode. Okay, so sorry for that. So kingdom Monera belongs to prokaryote domain. Okay, so I said we can also now have the archaea bacteria and the bacteria under these guys. Very, very important. Then the members of this kingdom have no membrane-bounded organelle. Of course, they are prokaryotic. So kingdom Monera belongs to the prokaryote family. The organisms belonging to this kingdom do not contain a true nucleus. Of course, they do not really have a membrane-bounded nucleus, but the content of the nucleus is kind of in the cytoplasm in an area called what? Nucleoid, the first nucleus. Then their DNA is not enclosed within the nucleus. These are the oldest known microorganisms on Earth. In fact, anytime I'm teaching this, I always say Kingdom Monera are like the ancestor to every other organism. Like they are our four fathers. You get my point? So like life actually begins with them. They are the simplest kingdom. So you get so life begins with the Kingdom Monera. Then it advanced to the eukaryotic guys, then before you. So that's that for that. So they are the oldest known microorganisms on Earth. Then they are unicellular organisms found mostly in a moist environment. They are found in hot springs, snow deep. Okay, you know those ones. So one thing I need to each guys to know is about moist environment. So life also begins with what aquatic life. Sure you get. You said that means life also begins with what unicellularity. So unicellular organisms in aquatic, that's where life started. So you will notice that when we move to kingdom protista, they are still unicellular, but they are now prokaryotic. Sure you get my point. So all those things that's actually the way to learn this particular topic. It's a whole lot, but just know the trend. Oh, in Kingdom Monera, this is what we have. Okay, then in Kingdom Protista, it advances to this. In Kingdom Fungi, it advances to this. Do you get my point? So let's move on. So the characteristics now, they are unicellular organisms. Their DNA is naked, don't have a nuclear membrane. I said that already. And then it lacks organelles like mitochondria. All these organelles that it lacks, they are membrane-bounded organelles, so they will not have it because they don't have any organelle with membrane. So all this mitochondria is even having two membranes. So it's a double membranous organelle. Lysosome, plastids, Golgi bodies, endoplasmic reticulum, centrosome, and chloroplasts, they will definitely not have it. So you get. So they produce that essentially by binary fission or body. Binary fission is like they are splitting into two, or body in the sense that they are forming body like something just come out from one part of their body, like a small one, then form a big organism back. That's body. Then the cell wall is rigid and made up of peptidoglycan. Please note this. Peptidoglycan is what cell wall of bacteria. Please note that. Don't forget for plant it is cellulose, while for fungi it is chitin. Peptidoglycan for bacteria, cellulose for plants, chitin for what? Fungi. Flagellum serves as locomotory organ, although there's a structure of the flagellum they have that is different from the flagellum of eukaryotic cell. So I don't think okay, let me just give you now. It your normal flagellum this in eukaryotic is a 9-2 structure, or 9-2, it's called a 9-2 fibrillate structure. It says that we have 9 pairs of microtubules forming a circle. They will now have two microtubules just like a pear at the center. She gets so that's like 9 pairs, 18 plus 2, that's 20 microtubules forming the. But in kingdom Monera and bacteria, that's not how it is. She get, although you don't need to know that, they won't ask you for this level. So these are the environmental decomposers. So they show different mode of nutrition such as autotrophic, parasitic, heterotrophic, and or saprophytic. Autotrophic, that means they also have green guys there. They may not even have green guys. There are other ways. There's also a chemosynthetic way of producing food. So they will be using that parasitic, like parasites, heterotrophic, like they need to depend on other guys. Then saprophytic, or that means they are decaying or what? Dead. They are depending on dead decaying organisms. So coming to bacteria, now let's talk about bacteria. Bacteria are microscopic organisms. Oh, before I move on, I need to mention virus. All you just need to know about virus is that they are kind of not living. They are not an or we don't consider them as organisms. So you get they do not belong to any of these classification systems because they are not organisms. When they're on their own, they cannot live. But it's when they enter another living organism that they started living. So you get so they are just kind of They are not part of life sharing basically. They are not living generally. But when they get into what another living organism, they become what living, and they can now what reproduce and do other stuff. So that's just that you need to know about them. So bacteria are microscopic organisms that can survive in diverse environments. They can be beneficial as well as harmful. They possess a simple structure without a nucleus and a few cell organelles. Okay. Now, they can be beneficial as well as harmful. You have bacteria in you that help you in your stomach, shake in the digestion of food. That's the beneficial guys. And harmful in the sense that you know what bacteria are capable of. They can cause a lot of diseases too. So that's why we have antibacterial. Okay. Then the bacteria are surrounded by two protective coverings, the outer cell wall and inner cell membrane. Some bacteria are also covered by capsule. Okay. The short whip-like extensions known as pili surround the surface of bacteria. The long whip-like structures are known as flagella, and I told it is not having the 9-2 fibrillate structure. So they exhibit autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So the autotrophic they use what? That's the chemosynthetic pathway or the way of doing that. While the heterotrophic they will depend on what? On the rate guys. So the bacterial shape, yeah, you need to also know this. So the bacteria can be classified based on their shape. We have the cocci, the bacillus, the fibrous, the spirillum, the filament, the stalk, and the budded. So for the cocci, they are spherical or oval in shape. So for the bacillus, they are rod. For the fibrous, they are like comma or kidney shaped. For the spirillum, they are spiral or coiled. For the filament, they consist of small filaments like fungi mycelia. You are going to see what that mycelium is. Then you have the stalk that process the stalk. Then the budded guys are like a board. You get my point. So those are just like shapes of bacteria. They're coming to the next kingdom now. So I said this is the beginning of eukaryotic life. Shall you get? Prokaryotic is kingdom monera, then eukaryotic is there. But these guys are now what? Unicellular. Although they can say there are some with multicellularity. But you need to note that kingdom protista are kind of they started unicellular eukaryotic life. So the term protista is derived from the word protistos, meaning the very first. The organisms are usually unicellular, and the cell of these organisms contain a nucleus which is bound to the organelles. That means they are eukaryotic. So some of them even possess structures that aid locomotion like flagella with the 9-2 fibrillate structure. Even the cilia. In fact, you need to also know that cilia are small and numerous flagella. When your flagella is small and it's numerous, you call it cilia. But when it is just very few, like two or one, and is longer, is flagella. So scientists speculate that protists form a link between plants and animals and fungi, as these three kingdoms diverged from a common protist-like ancestors billions of years ago. So though these protist-like ancestors is a hypothetical organism, we can trace some genes found in modern animals and plants to see ancient organisms. Therefore, these organisms are traditionally considered the first eukaryotic forms of life and a predecessor to plant and animal fungi. So the kingdom protista their characteristics now. Number one thing you need to know is that they are what? Eukaryotic and they are unicellular. Do you get? See, and they are also aquatic. So aquatic life is still kind of, don't forget aquatic life started with the bacteria guys, the monera guys. But moneras are what? Unicellular and what? Prokaryotic. Then aquatic life also now advances to what? The protista, which are what? Eukaryotic and what? Also unicellular. Do you get my point? So just like any other eukaryotic cells, okay, you know what an eukaryotic organism will have. Then they may be autotrophic or heterotrophic in nature, of course. Symbiosis is observed in members of this class. Symbiosis is the relationship between two organisms. Relationship. It can be mutualistic, it can be parasitic, it can be predation. It's just a relationship between two organisms. But anytime they use symbiosis like that, they always refer to mutualism. Mutualism in the sense that the two members of that relationship benefit from each other. So protists exhibit locomotion through cilia and flagella. A few organisms belonging to the kingdom Protista have pseudopodia. Pseudopodia are those guys. Amoeba have pseudopodia basically. I know that Igleana has flagella, and I know that Paramecium has cilia. I'm going to see that in the subkingdom Protozoa soonest. So Protista reproduces by ancestral means. The sexual method of reproduction is extremely rare and occurs only during times of stress. It's only when they are stressed that they actually what copulate. That's just the idea. You can see it that way. So classification of protists, you can is like the kingdom protista is having a a major name, which is Protista, and now it is now divided into two sub-kingdom. The sub-kingdom Protophyta for plants, then why the sub-kingdom Protozoa. So just note this: anywhere you see the word "phyte" is referring to plant, zoa is referring to what, animal. I think that's what I explained down there. You can pause and digest that very well. So kingdom Protista. So it is divided into four major groups. We have the amoeboid protozoans, flagellated protozoans, ciliated protozoans, and the sporozoans. Although I was trying to just be so simple because the kingdom protozoa is actually divided into seven phylums, which is the Sarcomastigophora, we have the Labiametamorpha, we have the Acetospora, we have the Myxozoa, we have the Celiophora, we have the Acetospora, and we have the Microspora. So we have seven phylums basically, but for your level, we can just stick to what? To these four subkingdoms. So this amoeboid and flagellated, they actually belong to a common phylum called the Sarcomastigophora. You can see that right here. So Sarcomastigophora, that's where your amoeboid and flagellated protozoans are. So amoeboid guys are the ones amoeba, and they have pseudopodia. So the main feature of amoeba is what pseudopodia, and pseudopodia is a force feed. They use it to what, to move and also to locomote and to feed. Let's note that. Then the flagellated, they have flagella, share you get, and that means we are under Sarcomastigophora now. We have the Sarcodina. Okay, yes, I mentioned that Sarcodina and what, Mastigophora. So Mastigophora as the flagellates, Sarcodina is what? They are the one with what? Pseudopodia. Okay, then we now have the ciliated protozoans. Without telling you, you should know that that's paramecium. So they belong to what? Pseudophora. Then sporozoans, these are where you have your plasmodium guy. So plasmodium or cryptosporidium. So all those guys are what? Sporozoans, and they belong to what? Apicomplex phylum. That's that about that. Then Kingdom Protista now, the Protophyta. So don't forget we've mentioned the word Protozoa. This is the Protophyta. So the Protophyta subkingdom can be divided into four groups. So we have the slime molds, we have the chrysophytes, we have the dinoflagellates, and then we have the what? Euglenoids. So don't forget the Euglena also has a what? Plant-like characteristics in the sense that it can what, produce what, its own food. But it is better classified under Protophyta. So slime molds are saprophytic in the sense that they are what, they feed on dead and decaying matter. So these are tiny organisms that have many nuclei. Usually slime molds are characterized by the presence of aggregates called plasmodium and even visible to the naked eye. Okay. So for these crassified dinoflagellates and euglenoids, so this form another category under kingdom Protista. These are generally single-celled or multicellular organisms. These are they are, don't forget, in other kingdom protista they are kind of unicellular though, but when you come to this kind of case, you have kind of exception in the sense that they are even multicellular in the sense that they are forming colonies. It is still the same organism that is coming together to form the same organism again. It's just like a colony of different of the same organism. So these are photosynthetic of their plants, so we expect them to do that. So found mostly in freshwater sources or marine lakes. They are characterized by stiff cell wall. Stiff, don't forget, cell wall is also very, very rigid. So example of crassophytes include the diatoms and golden algae. So that's that for that. They have the silicious cell wall and other stuff. So then the dinoflagellates are photosynthetic and found in various different colors. According to pigments present in them, they show bioluminescence to known and known to cause what, red tide. Yeah, this is a very, very common UTM question to you. Which of the following is capable of causing red tides? Is what's now dinoflagellates. Then glenoids, you know what this guy is? It's Glena. That's flagella, and it can also photosynthesize. Don't forget, animals move, plant photosynthesize, but this guy can move and also photosynthesize. So that's why we have it here. So the kingdom fungi now. So fungi are eukaryotic organisms that include microorganisms such as yeast, molds, and mushroom. Not those three guys. YLM. Yeast, molds, and mushroom. Not slime mold. You know where slime mold is now. Good. So the organism found in the kingdom fungi contain a cell wall and are omnipresent, saying that you have fungi everywhere. Your bread is decaying. That's the work of fungi. All the sorts. So they are classified as heterotrophs amongst living organisms. To name a few, the appearance of black spot on bed, okay, I think I just said this. The mushrooms and the yeast cells, you know where you have your mushroom decaying what? Decaying trees and all. So that's that for that. They are also found in moist skin infections and other fungal diseases. So that's that for that. If you observe carefully, all the examples that we cited involve moist conditions. Thus, we can say fungi usually grow in places which are moist and warm enough to what? To support them. That means they are also kind of trying to live the what? The aquatic life. Do you get my point? Don't forget your protophyte, your protista guys are also aquatic unicellular. But one thing about fungi, they are what? Multicellular, if I forget to mention that. They are multicellular. This is where the multicellular life begins, shey you get. So we have from kingdom monera, they are unicellular prokaryotic, kingdom protista, they are unicellular eukaryotic, while kingdom fungi, multicellular eukaryotic. That's how I need you guys to know that. Okay, let's move on. So moving on to the structure of fungi now, you can see the sporadium, the spores. The sporadium keeps the spores, that's just the idea. You have the stolon, then the hyphae. Okay, let's look at this. The structure of fungi can be explained in the following points. Almost all the fungi have a filamental structure except the yeast cells. They can be either single-celled or multicellular organisms. This is your multicellularity begins. Fungi consist of long thread-like structures known as hyphae. You can see the hyphae that is forming like their roots, basically. This hyphae together forms a mesh-like structure called mycelium. You know the difference between hyphae and mycelium. Mycelium is what group of hyphae. Do you get that? So that's that for that. So moving on to the next thing here. Fungi possess a cell wall which is made of chitin and polysaccharides. Chitin normally is a polysaccharide. We should know that already. Should get chitin and cellulose, they are both polysaccharides. So and then chitin basically forms the cell wall of fungi. And don't forget, cellulose is also what polysaccharide but forms the cell wall of what normal plant. Then the third thing, the peptidoglycan in the sense of like proteins and what and the other guy here, proteins and that glycan, glycogen are related to carbohydrates. So peptidoglycan forms the cell wall of what? Of bacteria. Um, chitin forms the cell wall of fungi, while cellulose forms the cell wall of normal what? Plants. Okay, moving on. So the cell wall comprises of a protoplasm, which is differentiated into other cell parts such as cell membrane, cytoplasm, cell organelles, and nuclei. This nucleus is dense, clear, with chromatin trace. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Of course, it's eukaryotic. Moving on. So, kingdom, the characteristics of your kingdom fungi now. The characteristics. So we have they are eukaryotic. And one thing I also need you guys to know is what vascularity. They are non-vascular. It is from your kingdom plantae. We are going to explain that very well. So we have the fungi guys. They are what multicellular number one. They are eukaryotic and they are heterotrophic organisms. They cannot. That's one of their properties. That's why they even separated them from the what kingdom plantae. Sorry for that, guys. So that's why we separated them from the what kingdom plantae. So they are what eukaryotic, they are multicellular, they are non-vascular, means they don't have a vascular system that can transport water and food. That's what I meant. There's no tube-like structure in them that can transport water and food. Everything is more like by diffusions and all. Shey get. So they may be unicellular or filamentous. They may be unicellular in the sense of okay, we have some unicellular guys, but most of them are what multicellular. So they reproduce by means of spores. That's sporulation. Spore is this structure we see on them. See that this structure up here, spores. So when this sporangium bursts, it releases spores. Then the spores will go and form new organisms. Okay, so fungi exhibit the phenomenon of alternation of generation. Alternation of generation in the sense that it's actually a guy in them that does that. We are going to see that later. So fungi they lack chlorophyll and hence cannot perform photosynthesis. Of course, they store their food in form of starch. Starch, not this. They store their food in form of starch. So then, biosynthesis of chitin occurs in fungi. Of course, that's what their cell wall is made up of. So we can say, they are producing chitin. See, the fungi have no embryonic stage. They develop from the spores. develop directly from spores, sporulation. The mode of reproduction is sexual or asexual. Example is mushroom moles and yeast. Moving on classification, so we have based on their mode of nutrition, saprophytic, parasitic, and symbiotic. Saprophytic, feeding on what? Dead decaying organisms. Parasitic in form of a parasite. And symbiotic in the sense that don't forget I said they are always using what? Mutualistic relationship as far the two of them are benefiting. Although symbiotic is more than that. Parasitic is also symbiotic, but when they use the word symbiotic here, they are referring to what? Mutualism. That's what I'm trying to say. So leaching and mycorrhizal. Uh, leaching, leaching, leaching is a relationship between fungi and algae. So let's look at that. Leaching is a symbiotic relation between algae and fungi. Here, both algae and fungi are mutually benefited as fungi provide shelter for algae and it reverse algae synthesize carbohydrates for fungi. Mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association between fungi and plants. In fact, I need you guys to know this. Leaching is what? Fungi and algae. And mycorrhiza is what? Fungi and plants. Fungi improves the nutrient uptake by plants, whereas plants provide organic molecules like sugar to the fungi. Plants will do photosynthesis to get the sugar molecules. So let's note that. They're also based on spore formation. We have the zygomycetes, the ascomycetes, the basidiomycetes, and then deuteromycetes. So for the don't forget zygote is fusion of two things. So that means you have fusion of two different cells for the zygomycetes. For the ascomycetes, they are kind of sac-like. I use the SAC. Don't forget in their this thing they have SAC. So that's why I used to decode that. So they are also called sac fungi. Let's note that they can be coprophilous. Don't forget what coprophilous is. Like the love what feces. I told you that coprophagous are those organisms that feed on what? Feces. They decompose as parasitic or saprophytic. The sexual pores are called ascospores. Asexual reproduction occurs by conidiospores. Example is what? Saccharomyces. Yeah. Then basidiomycetes. So the example is mushroom and are most commonly found in uh, mushrooms are the most commonly found basidiomyces. Okay, mostly as parasites, of course. So sexual reproduction occurs by basidiopause, asexual is by conidae budding. Budding is the most important one, or fragmentation. Then the last one, deuteromycetes. In fact, they call this guy, they are imperfect fungi. Did not follow the regular reproduction cycle as other fungi. They do not reproduce asexually. Asexual reproduction occurs by conidae. Example is what? Trichoderma. That's just that about that. So all I just need you guys to know here is those three guys and basically wanting to zygomycetes using what? Two different cells. An example is mucor. Ascomycetes, they are sac fungi. If you know that is okay. Then basidiomycetes is what? When you talk about mushroom. Mushroom basically is basidiomycetes. Then deuteromycetes, imperfect fungi. So that's that for that. That would do the kingdom plantae. So this is now like the continuation of the beginning of the second part of the lecture actually. So we already said that Robert Whittaker gave the five kingdom classification where kingdom plantae is part, okay. Then you categorize them, okay, we've explained this before. Then kingdom plantae includes all the plants. Kingdom plantae includes all the plants basically. They are eukaryotic, multicellular, and autotrophic organisms. Note this: eukaryotic, multicellular, and autotrophic organism. That's the criteria for kingdom planting. You must be able to what? Produce food. That's it. The plant cell contains rigid cell wall made up of what? Cellulose. Then plants have chloroplast and chlorophyll pigment, which is used for what? Photosynthesis. Okay. So that's the major plant. This okay. These are another major plant characteristics, but we are going to look at different divisions on that plant. So the plant kingdom has the following characteristic features. They are non-motile, they cannot move. That's one thing about them. That's what a glenna kind of forfeited. She get a glenna can move with the aid of flagella. So they make their own food and hence are called autotrophs. They reproduce asexually by vegetative propagation or sexually. Note this. I'm so sorry for the break. So they reproduce asexually by vegetative propagation or sexually. These are multicellular eukaryotes, very also important. Don't forget, this is how the trend is coming now. From the MONERA prokaryotic to PROTISTA eukaryotic to fungi eukaryotic. So every other guys are also eukaryotic. You get my point. But also now, MONERA is unicellular, PROTISTA is unicellular, fungi is multicellular, plantain will also be what? Multicellular. That's the idea here. So they are multicellular eukaryotes. The plant cell contains outer cell wall and a large central vacuole. That's even one of the feature of plant cell, a large central vacuole. Plant contain the vacuole is for the rigidity. Please note that. So plants contain photosynthetic pigment called chlorophyll present in plastids. The plastid here is chloroplast. We have many plastids, but the one that contains chlorophyll is what? Chloroplast, like chloroplastid. Okay. So they have different organelles for anchorage, reproduction, support, and photosynthesis. So classification of the kingdom Plantae. So it is based on the following criteria: the plant body, the vascular system, that's for the transposition of water and other substances, which is the phloem and the xylem. Then the seed formation. Let's note that. So when these are the three criteria they use in the classification of what plants to divide them into what further divisions. Remember, division for plants, phylum for animals. So classification of kingdom Plantae now. You have the THALLOPHYTA, BRYOPHYTA, PTERIDOPHYTA, and spermatophyta. Those are although the schizophyta was like was in what kingdom monera. Schizophyta is also a plant. So if you say plant generally, you can include schizophyta, and that's why our Greek students will see schizophyta as part. Do you get my point? Because they are not really saying kingdom monera, they are just saying plant kingdom. So they will include schizophyta. So when you include schizophyta and you want to remember the order, you can use this mnemonic. Samuel, the biologist, planted sugarcane. Samuel will be for schizophyta. D will be for THALLOPHYTA, biologist will be for BRYOPHYTA, planted will be for PTERIDOPHYTA, sugarcane will be for what? Spermatophyta. Okay, so kingdom Plantae now. So which is the what? THALLOPHYTA. So we are starting with the THALLOPHYTA. In this case, I didn't discuss the schizophyta because you already know that they are what? Prokaryotic. They, they are also aquatic and all those stuff. They are monerans. So thallophytes lack well differentiated body structure and the plant body is thallus-like. So thallophytes includes plants with primitive and simple body structures. So the plant body is thallus, they may be filamentous, colonial, branched or unbranched. This are the image here is showing a thallus. It's showing a member, a thallophyte rather. So we now have three subdivisions, let me put it that way, which is what the green algae, red algae, and brown algae. So chlorophyte, rhodophyte, and phycophyte. So the name of their family is chlorophyta. I mean, the name of the division is chlorophyta, chlorophyta, and phycophyta. But the organism will now be what? Chlorophyte, rhodophyte, and phycophyte. Examples include those guys, the volvox, the fucus, the spirogyra is here, is an algae. Please know that spirogyra is an algae. Then the chara, the polycyphonia, the holotrix. The characters of Thallophyta, they are usually found in most of wet places. Of course, we expected that. This is due to the absence of true roots and vascular tissue that is needed to transport water and minerals. Hence, they are found in most of wet places for easy diffusion to occur. They are autotrophic in nature because, of course, they are green. So, most members of this group manufacture their own food. But a few members like fungi is also kind of let me say that some thallophytes also belongs to the fungi guys. She get are dependent on other sources of food. Reserve food is generally starch, of course, their plants. After photosynthesis, glucose is produced and consumed almost immediately. The remaining glucose is converted into complex compounds called starch. They store their glucose in form of starch. Animals store it in form of what? Glycogen. They have a cell wall composed of cellulose surrounding their cells. Absence of vascular tissue. Unlike other plants, xylem and phloem are absent. Let's note that. So sex organs are simple, single-celled. There's no embryo formation after fertilization. That's their own issue. They just when there is fertilization, they just have another kind of seed. They form seed instead. You get my point? Okay, so oh, it is plant that forms the seed. I forgot to mention that it's plant that forms the seed, but for this guy, did not form any embryo after fertilization. The new plant just develops. Okay, so for the bryophyta now, this is the second one. So for bryophyta, anytime I just mention the bryophyta, I always remember Moses and liverwort. You will notice that I bolded those two organisms there. So they do not have vascular tissues too. They don't have xylem and phloem. The plant body has roots like stem-like and leaf-like structure. It is not the true one, but something like it. You get. So the plant body has bryophytes are terrestrial plants, but are known as amphibians of plant kingdoms. Note that name, amphibians of plant kingdom is what bryophyta. And this is where terrestrial life begins. They are the first guy to do the terrestriality of it to come on land. But anytime they want to reproduce, they go to what? For sexual reproduction, they go to water. So they are like amphibians. Amphibians is like amphi, two sides. Amphibians, she get. So just like amphibians, normally, your frogs and toads, do you get my point? They are also both aquatic and they have their life in they have aquatic life and about terrestrial life. They are present in moist and shady places, moist of course, and shady places. Bryophyta include mosses, onwards, and liverworts. Let's know that. This is mosses, double S, not singular is moss, MOSS. So the plural is mosses. So some of common examples are Mercantia, Funaria, Sphagnum, and Artioceros. So the characteristics of bryophytes, okay, they they do not have true roots but crude stems and leaves. Okay, note that. They have rhizode. These are like their first roots. So you get rhizode is just like let me when you see your potato, the stem is moving while the roots are going into the ground. So rhizodes are kind of similar, but they are not as strong as that of what the potato plant. These roots or rhizomes do not absorb nutrients like other plant roots. Note that this is just for anchorage to the ground. Mosses release spores from their leaves which travels by water and make new mosses in new location. In fact, bryophytes dey undergo what called alternation of generation in the sense that some of their life they produce gametes while some of their life they also produce spores. So they alternate generation. So water is very essential for mosses to grow and spread. They can entirely dry out and survive. When in contact with water, they again revive and continue growing. That's their life. So then I think this is the last guy we're going to be looking at. Kingdom, the division Pteridophyta. So they have both the vegetable plant body into root, stem, and leaves. They have a vascular system. This is where vascularity starts. The xylem and the phloem. That means they can absorb water through their roots and pass it to other part of the body. Then they photosynthesize this thing. The food can be passed to other plant bodies. Let's note that possession of vascular system begins with Pteridophyta. So because they have vascular, in fact, the vascular system of a thing can be given a group name called the Trachophyta. So under Trachophyta, they are plants with what vascular system. An example is what Pteridophyta and Spermatophyta. Do you get my point? So that's that for that. Then that's all.